The chandeliers at the Metropolitan Museum of Art dripped light onto the most powerful people in New York, but their laughter was aimed at the quietest person in the room. They saw Anna Woods as a charity case, a simple waitress her billionaire husband, Griffin, kept as a pet. They whispered, they pointed, they laughed. But in 10 minutes, that same woman would walk onto the stage, take the microphone, and systematically dismantle the entire Woods family dynasty, leaving them utterly speechless before the entire world. The air in the Temple of Dendur at the Met was thick with the scent of money, privilege, and expensive perfume. It was the annual Woods Foundation Gala, the absolute pinnacle of New York's philanthropic scene. Tonight, the event was set to raise $50 million for children's hospitals, a noble goal that served the secondary, more important purpose of cementing the Woods family's social and financial dominance. Anna Woods stood near one of the massive sandstone columns, a ghost in a simple, dark navy sheath dress. While other women wore glittering cascades of diamonds, Anna wore only her thin gold wedding band and a pair of pearl earrings that had been her own mother's. She looked elegant, but next to the couture gowns and archival jewelry of the other guests, she looked, as her sister-in-law had loudly described her, provincial. Her husband, Griffin Woods, was across the room. He was the CEO of Woods Global Holdings, a man who radiated a slick, predatory charm. He was laughing, his hand on the back of a state senator, his eyes scanning the crowd, never resting on his wife for more than a second. When his gaze did pass over her, his smile tightened almost imperceptibly, a silent command. "Stay small. Don't embarrass me." Anna had been married to Griffin for 2 years, and she understood the command perfectly. She was the family's great shame. The Woods were old money, a dynasty that traced its lineage back to railroad barons. Griffin was supposed to marry a Vanderbilt, a Rockefeller, or at the very least, a European aristocrat. Instead, he had married Anna Scott, the family's approved narrative, the one they leaked to Page 6 and whispered at their country clubs, was that Griffin, in a moment of emotional crisis after a broken engagement, had found Anna waitressing at a small diner in Brooklyn. He had been charmed by her simple authenticity, and in an act of baffling rebellion, he'd married her. The family, led by the matriarch, Beatrice Woods, had been forced to accept it. But they never let Anna forget what she was. Beatrice, a formidable woman dripping in emeralds that matched her cold eyes, was holding court near the centerpiece. She saw Anna watching and gave her a look that could freeze steam. Anna, feeling the familiar chill, dropped her gaze. "Oh, look, Robert, the little mouse has come out of her hole." The voice belonged to Philippa, Griffin's younger sister. She was sharp, fashionable, and endemically cruel. She and her husband, Robert, approached Anna, their champagne flutes held like weapons. "Philippa, be nice," Robert mumbled, though he was smirking. Robert was weaker than his sister, a man who simply followed the family's power, which always rested with Beatrice and Griffin. "I am being nice," Philippa said, her voice loud enough for the surrounding guests to hear. She stopped directly in front of Anna. "Anna, darling, that dress is brave. Is it a vintage find? Or just old?" Anna felt the familiar flush of heat on her neck. She kept her voice even. "It was a gift, Philippa." "Good evening." "A gift? From whom? Goodwill?" Philippa laughed, a high, tinkling sound that made Anna's teeth ache. "Griffin really must give you a better allowance. It's embarrassing. People are talking. They think we're not feeding you." Anna looked past her. "The donation ticker is doing well. They're already at 40 million. Philippa's smile faltered, annoyed that her barb hadn't landed. "Robert, look. She's watching the ticker. How terribly quaint. She's probably counting it in minimum wage hours." "That's enough," Anna said, her voice quiet but cold. "Or what?" Philippa challenged, stepping closer. "What will you do, Anna? Serve me a cappuccino? You are a guest in my world. You are here on my family's dime. You are a Woods by name only, a technicality. You are, and always will be, the help." Every head in their immediate vicinity had turned. Anna could see the smirks, the pitying looks, the whispers. She looked for Griffin. He was watching. He had seen the entire exchange. He saw his sister humiliate his wife. He took a slow sip of his whiskey, held her gaze for one long, agonizing second, and then turned his back, laughing at something the senator said. The betrayal was so total, so complete, it almost took Anna's breath away. He was leaving her to the wolves. "You see?" Philippa whispered triumphantly. "He knows what you are, too. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go speak to people who actually matter." Philippa and Robert swept away, leaving Anna alone in their wake. She stood perfectly still, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. She didn't retreat. She didn't cry. She simply breathed. She was used to the insults. She was used to the whispers. They called her the Brooklyn waitress, the charity case, the billionaire's folly. What they didn't know was why Griffin had really married her. It wasn't for her simple authenticity. Griffin hadn't just stumbled into her diner. He had been looking for her. Anna Scott wasn't just a waitress. That was a job she'd taken to pay her bills while she lived a different life online. In the hidden high-stakes world of quantitative analysis and private hedge funds, Anna was a legend. She was known only by a pseudonym, Quant Phoenix. She was an anonymous, self-taught financial strategist who had, twice, predicted a major market collapse and built a small fortune by trading against the grain. Her white papers on predictive algorithms were studied at MIT and Goldman Sachs, though no one knew who Phoenix was. 2 years ago, Woods Global Holdings was on the verge of a catastrophic collapse due to a series of high-risk, foolish ventures by Griffin and Robert. Desperate, Griffin had managed to track down the identity of Phoenix. He found her, not in a high-rise in Hong Kong or London, but in a small Brooklyn apartment, serving coffee to pay for her servers and data subscriptions. He hadn't offered her a job. He'd offered her marriage. "They'll never listen to you," he had told her, in that same diner. "My family. They're traditional. They won't hand the reins to an unknown woman. But as my wife, you'd have a front row seat. You could advise me. We could save the company. I'll take the credit publicly, and you'll have security and access you've only dreamed of. We can be a team." She had been naive. She'd been star-struck by his charm and the sheer scale of the challenge. She'd agreed. For 2 years, Anna had been the secret engine of Woods Global. She was the one who restructured their debt. She was the one who pivoted their investments from failing tech stocks into green energy. She was the one who had engineered the very $300 million profit that was allowing the Woods to host this gala. And in return, Griffin took the Forbes interviews, he accepted the Visionary CEO awards, and he let his family treat her like dirt. It was a simple, brutal transaction, her genius for his name. But as she stood there, abandoned by her husband in a room full of enemies, Anna felt the fragile framework of that deal begin to crack. The lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the main stage. The Foundation's director walked to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," the director began, "welcome. Tonight, we are honored to have the visionary leader of Woods Global, the man who has single-handedly revolutionized the company and our city's philanthropic landscape. Please welcome Mr. Griffin Woods." A wave of thunderous applause. Griffin, smiling his 1,000-watt smile, buttoned his tuxedo jacket and began the walk to the stage. He passed Anna, pausing just for a second. "You handled that well," he murmured, not looking at her. "Keep it up, don't make a sound. We're almost through the night." He brushed past her, climbing the stairs to the stage. Anna watched him go, and something inside her finally snapped. It was the "don't make a sound." He didn't just tolerate the abuse, he demanded her silence as part of the bargain. She looked at Beatrice, who was beaming at her son with grotesque pride. She looked at Philippa, who caught her eye and gave her a final, triumphant smirk. Anna pulled out her small, simple smartphone. It wasn't a new model. It was old, functional, and triple encrypted. She opened a secure file. It was a dossier she had been compiling for 6 months, ever since she suspected Griffin was hiding assets from her. It contained every trade she'd ever made, every memo she'd ever written, and the digital proof that her Quant Phoenix credentials were the ones accessing and saving the Wood servers, time and time again. Griffin tapped the microphone. "Thank you. Thank you all. What a night." Anna took a deep breath. She began to walk, not toward the exit, but toward the side of the stage, where a young audio technician was monitoring the levels. He saw her approach and frowned, confused. "Can I help you, Mom?" he whispered. "Yes," Anna said, her voice clear and hard. "You can give me the spare wireless mic." "I'm sorry, Mom. This is a restricted—" Anna didn't look at him. She looked at his monitor. "Your gain is too high on the main feed. You're getting a 2-decibel peak distortion on his plosives, and your RF2 channel has a frequency conflict with the Wall Street Journal cruise transmitter in the back. You need to switch it to 470 Biles. The technician's jaw dropped. He stared at his board, saw she was right, and then looked back at her in awe. Anna simply held out her hand. Silently, the technician handed her the second microphone. She palmed it, switched it on, and waited in the shadows of the stage wing, listening to her husband accept applause for a victory he had never earned. Griffin was in his element. The spotlight was his natural habitat. "And that is why I've always believed that foresight," he said, pausing for dramatic effect, "is not just about seeing the future, it's about building it. When I took the helm of Woods Global, we were facing headwinds. But I saw a new path, a green path. I told my board, we will pivot, we will innovate, we will lead." And we did. The applause was deafening. Beatrice was dabbing a tear from her eye. Philippa was looking at her brother with adoration. "So tonight," Griffin continued, "it is my honor to pledge an additional $10 million to the Children's Fund. That's a bold move, considering Woods Global was insolvent 28 months ago." The voice was not Griffin's. It was clear, calm, and amplified, cutting through the entire hall. Every head turned. The applause died instantly, replaced by a stunned, collective gasp. Griffin froze, his smile locked in place, turning into a rictus of confusion. "I'm sorry, there seems to be a—" Anna Woods walked out of the shadows and into the second spotlight. She was holding the microphone. She looked tiny on the massive stage, but her presence was electric. The room went so quiet you could hear the ice melting in 1,000 glasses. "Anna!" Griffin hissed, his voice just low enough for the mic not to pick it up. "What in God's name are you doing? Get off the stage!" Beatrice was on her feet, her face a mask of thunder. "Security, get her off the stage!" But the audio tech, loyal to the woman who had fixed his frequencies, had conveniently stepped away from his console. The security guards looked confused, unsure if this was part of the show. Anna looked out at the crowd, her eyes finding the Wall Street Journal table. My apologies for the interruption, she said, her voice perfectly level. My husband, Griffin, was just talking about foresight. I'd like to talk about hindsight. Anna, I'm warning you, Griffin whispered, stepping toward her. My name is Anna Scott, she said, ignoring him, though for the last 2 years I have been known as Anna Woods, but in certain circles I am known by another name. She paused, letting the tension build. The financial reporters were leaning in, their pens poised. The name I use for my work, Anna continued, is Quant Phoenix. Silence. To 90% of the room, the name meant nothing. But to the 10% that mattered, the bankers, the hedge fund managers, the investors, and the press, it was as if she had just announced she was Kaiser Soze. A man at the Goldman Sachs table dropped his fork. My God, he whispered. It's her. Griffin's face went white. He knew that name. It was the name he had tracked. It was the name he had buried. That's a lie, Philippa shrieked from her table, her voice raw. She's a waitress. She's crazy. She's having a breakdown. Am I? Anna asked, her voice still impossibly calm. Let's check the data. 28 months ago, Woods Global was leveraged 40-1 on bad commercial real estate debt. It was 3 weeks from a margin call that would have wiped out the company and this entire family. That's not an opinion. That's a fact. Griffin moved for the mic, but Anna stepped away, holding up her hand. On May 12th, she said, her voice becoming a cold, precise scalpel. 2 years ago, Quant Phoenix executed a series of multi-billion-dollar credit default swaps against the commercial real estate market, a move that buffered the company from the collapse. On June 1st, Quant Phoenix wrote the Green Delta algorithm, which shifted the entire Woods portfolio from failing tech holdings into the green energy futures that my husband just took credit for. She turned to look at him. The spotlight was on them both. He was trapped. You're hysterical, Anna, he said, trying to laugh it off, but sweat was beading on his forehead. Ladies and gentlemen, my wife is unwell. This is deeply embarrassing. We ask for your privacy. He's right, Anna said. It is embarrassing. It's embarrassing that the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company doesn't know the difference between a swap and a future. It's embarrassing that he can't even log into his own company's high-level trading servers. She looked back at the crowd. He didn't find me in a diner by chance. He sought me out. He sought out Quant Phoenix to save his family's name, and I did. I agreed to do the work, in secret, in exchange for this. She gestured to the room. The name. The privilege. I agreed to be his ghostwriter. But the deal was just broken, she continued. The deal was that I would do the work and he would provide security. But I was just publicly humiliated by his sister, called the help, while my husband, the man who is only on this stage because of my mind, watched and did nothing. He told me to not make a sound. The price of my silence just went up. Beatrice was on her cell phone, no doubt calling her personal security. Philippa looked like she was going to be sick. So, Griffin, Anna said, turning to him fully. Tell me, if you're the visionary, what's our current exposure on the lithium-ion futures in our private Brazil fund? Griffin just stared at her, his mouth opening and closing. He had no idea. He didn't even know they had a Brazil fund. I didn't think so, Anna said. The visionary is blind. She looked back at the stunned, silent audience. I am Quant Phoenix. I am the one who engineered the $300 million profit that is paying for this very party. And as of this moment, I am resigning from my unofficial advisory role at Woods Global. And tomorrow morning, I will be filing for divorce. She let those words hang in the air. Thank you for your time, she said. "Please enjoy the salmon." She turned, placed the microphone neatly on the podium, and walked off the stage, leaving her husband, her family, and the entire New York high society scene utterly, completely, and apocalyptically speechless. Anna walked. She did not run. She walked with the steady, measured pace of someone who had just completed a complex equation. Her heart was hammering, but her feet were sure. She bypassed the audio tech, who gave her a look of pure, unadulterated awe and a sharp nod, and headed straight for the exit, disappearing into the public hallway of the museum before the first, "Oh my God," was fully uttered in the dining hall. The gala was dead. The stunned silence she had left behind erupted into a chaotic cacophony. People weren't just whispering, they were shouting. Cell phones were out. The donation ticker was forgotten. The Wall Street Journal crew had sprinted out of the room, not even bothering to pack their cameras, their producer screaming into a phone, "Scrap the philanthropy piece. Get me everything on a quant phoenix. Now!" Back on stage, Griffin stood paralyzed. The spotlight was still on him, a harsh, unforgiving circle of light. He looked like a man who had been struck by lightning. "Griffin, do something!" Beatrice shrieked, finally finding her voice. The shriek broke his paralysis. His face, which had been pale with shock, contorted into a mask of pure, cold fury. This wasn't embarrassment. This was war. He vaulted off the stage, shoving a bewildered guest out of his way, and sprinted for the exit. Anna had made it to the grand staircase, her simple heels clicking on the marble. She was heading for the coat check, the last stop before freedom. She handed her ticket to the trembling attendant. "Right away, Mrs. Woods," the young woman stammered, her eyes wide. She had clearly heard the commotion. "Thank you. It's Ms. Scott." "Anna!" Griffin's voice echoed in the massive hall. He was at the top of the stairs, and he was coming down, fast. "Anna, you will not walk away from me." He was taking the stairs 2 at a time, his face dark. The coat check attendant fumbled with the coat, a simple black wool one. "Just give her the coat!" Griffin roared. The attendant flinched and practically threw it at Anna. Anna put her coat on, her movements still deliberate. She turned to face him just as he reached the bottom step. He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging into her bicep like a vice. "You just destroyed yourself," he hissed, his voice a venomous whisper. His charming, public mask was gone, shattered. This was the real Griffin, the one she saw when she questioned his trades. "You just destroyed me. You have no idea what you've just done." "Let go of my arm, Griffin," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "You're coming back in there," he snarled, trying to drag her. "You're going to get back on that stage. Tell them you're mentally ill, that you're on new medication. You're going to fix this." "No," she said simply. "You ungrateful little... I made you. I plucked you from obscurity. You were nothing. You signed a non-disclosure agreement. You signed a prenup. I will bury you, Anna. I will take everything. You will be back in that diner in a week, and I will personally see to it that you never work in finance, or waitressing, or anything ever again. I will sue you for slander, for breach of contract, for everything. You will have nothing." Anna looked down at his hand on her arm, then back up to his face. She had stopped being afraid of him 3 months ago, when she first found the hidden ledgers. "The prenup," she said, as if explaining a simple market theory, "is invalid. It was based on fraudulent inducement. You married me under the false pretense of a partnership when your intent was to defraud me of my intellectual property. That's a voidable contract." His grip faltered for a fraction of a second. "You can't prove that." "I can. I have the original pitch emails. Now, the NDA," she continued, "that is a strong document. I would have been in breach, except for one small standard exception. An NDA is voided when it is used to conceal a criminal conspiracy. Griffin's face went from rage to something else, a flicker of cold, genuine fear. What are you talking about?" he stammered. "There is no conspiracy?" "Isn't there?" Anna asked. She leaned in, her voice dropping so low only he could hear it. "Like the $80 million in uninvoiced consulting fees you siphoned from the Green Delta Fund and funneled to a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands, the one registered to GHB Holdings." He stopped breathing. He let go of her arm. She rubbed her bicep, her eyes never leaving his. "I found it 6 months ago. I wondered what it was for. At first I thought you were just stealing from the company. But then I looked at the corresponding trades. You've been using that $80 million to short your own company's stock. Our stock." He was as white as the marble floor. You don't know." "I know exactly," she cut him off. "You were using my algorithms to build the company's value, while you were simultaneously placing massive, leveraged bets against it, planning to tank it, trigger a buyback, and take the whole thing private, leaving the board and all the public shareholders with nothing. That's not just a breach of fiduciary duty, Griffin. It's wire fraud. It's securities fraud. It's money laundering." He was speechless, genuinely, utterly speechless. "You see," Anna said, adjusting her coat, "you thought I was a genius. You were wrong. I'm a data analyst, and you're a very, very messy set of data." She turned to leave. "Anna, wait!" His voice was no longer furious. It was desperate. He reached for her again. "Anna, please. We can fix this. You and me. Like we said. A team. I'll give you half. I'll give you anything." Anna paused at the door, her hand on the brass handle. She looked back at him. This powerful billionaire. Now just a common criminal, begging in the lobby of the Met. "The problem, Griffin," she said, "is that you think everything has a price. You're right. It does. And the price for my silence was your loyalty. You turned your back on me for your sister. You called me a liar. You let them call me the help. I'm not the help, Griffin. I'm the house." She pushed the door open and walked out into the cool, clean night air. A yellow cab was idling at the curb. She got in, and as it pulled away, she saw him through the rear window, a solitary, frantic figure in the grand, empty lobby, finally, completely alone. Anna didn't go back to the Fifth Avenue penthouse. That was his home, his territory. It was bugged, she was certain of it. The doormen were his spies, the staff loyal to Beatrice. Going there was a death sentence. Instead, she had the cab take her to a nondescript hotel in Midtown, one that catered to business travelers, not billionaires. She checked in under her mother's maiden name, paid in cash from a small emergency fund she'd been building for a year, and went up to a standard room on the 14th floor. It was small, sterile, and, most importantly, secure. The moment she locked the deadbolt, the adrenaline from the confrontation began to fade, replaced by a bone-deep tremor. She had done it. She had detonated the bomb. Now, she had to survive the fallout. She didn't sleep. She turned on the television, keeping the volume low, and opened her encrypted laptop. The media explosion was instantaneous and spectacular. Page 6 was leading with the social scandal. Galageddon. Billionaire's waitress wife goes berserk at Met. It was full of anonymous quotes from horrified guests, painting Anna as a troubled and erratic gold digger who had a public breakdown. But Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal were a different story. Their headlines were cold, sharp, and terrified. Woods Global plunges in after-hours trading. Mystery quant Phoenix unmasked as CEO's wife. Safety to monitor situation at BG. The financial world knew Quant Phoenix was real. The idea that she had just resigned and filed for divorce from the CEO she'd supposedly been advising was a 5-alarm fire. At 3:15 a.m., the Woods public relations machine roared to life. A unified statement was released. We are deeply saddened by the events of this evening. Mrs. Woods is suffering from a severe mental health crisis and is lashing out in a way that is both tragic and untrue. The Woods family is focused on getting her the help she needs and asks for privacy during this difficult time. Anna read it and felt a cold smile touch her lips. "The crazy wife defense," she whispered. "Classic. Predictable." It was a powerful, sexist, and often effective strategy. They would paint her as hysterical. They would discredit her. The $80 million in the Caymans was her trump card, but she had to be careful how she played it. If she went to the press, they'd say she faked the documents out of spite. She needed a more official channel. At 7 a.m., there was a quiet, firm knock on her hotel room door. Anna's blood ran cold. He had found her. She crept to the peephole. It wasn't Griffin. It wasn't hotel security. It was a woman, sharp, in her late 40s, with a no-nonsense haircut and a dark pantsuit. She looked like a lawyer. She was holding up a badge. Anna opened the door on the chain. "Who are you?" "Ms. Scott." The woman's voice was low and professional. "My name is Evelyn Reed. I'm with the Enforcement Division of the Securities and Exchange Commission. May I come in?" Anna stared at her, stunned. She had planned to go to them. They had come to her. She unlatched the chain and let her in. Evelyn Reed entered, her eyes scanning the room, noting the locked laptop, the pay-as-you-go phone, the "Do Not Disturb" sign. "You're a hard person to find, Miss Scott," Evelyn said, not sitting down. "Both as Anna Woods and as Quant Phoenix. My division has been trying to identify Phoenix for 18 months. To prosecute me?" Anna asked, her voice wary. "To hire me, originally," Evelyn said with a thin smile. "We were curious how an anonymous entity was consistently out-trading some of the biggest firms on Wall Street. But then about 6 months ago, our interest shifted." She looked directly at Anna. "6 months ago, we opened an investigation into Woods Global." Anna's breath hitched. "On what grounds?" "An anonymous tip. A board member was worried about the new green energy fund. It was performing too well. It looked like a Ponzi scheme. We started digging, but the books were pristine, unnaturally clean. We could see the smoke, but every time we got close, the fire moved." "That was me," Anna said quietly. "I was cleaning the books. I was covering his tracks. Not for the criminal parts. I was just making his legitimate trades look coherent." "You were the shield," Evelyn nodded. "Your legitimate genius was hiding his criminal enterprise. We were completely stalled. We were building a case, but it was weak. It was all circumstantial." Evelyn's eyes were sharp. "And then last night you got on stage. You gave us the motive. You gave us the means. And you gave us the name. Quant Phoenix. You're the key. You're the one who built the castle. You know where all the secret doors are." "I do," Anna said, the last of her fear being replaced by a cold, hard resolve. She walked to her laptop. "I know about the $80 million. Evelyn Reed's face lit up. "The $80 million. We saw the outflows. We couldn't trace them. They were coded as consulting fees and bounced through 3 different shell companies before vanishing." "They're in the Cayman Islands," Anna said, "registered to GHB Holdings. He's been using them to short the company, planning to trigger a hostile takeover of his own board." Evelyn Reed let out a slow, low whistle. He's not just a fraud. He's a cannibal. He's eating his own company. He's a Woods, Anna said. He thinks it all belongs to him. Ms. Scott, Evelyn said, her voice dropping, the crazy wife defense is already gaining traction. They are painting you as a scorned woman. Right now, your word against his is a media circus. But with this, she tapped the laptop. This is a federal case. We can offer you full immunity. We can offer you protection. We need your testimony. We need your data. An alliance. Anna had been alone for so long, fighting a shadow war against the family, that the idea of an ally, especially one with the power of the federal government, was overwhelming. You don't need to offer me immunity, Miss Reed, Anna said, opening her laptop and plugging in a thumb drive. I haven't broken any laws, but I will require protection. For me, and for my mother in Brooklyn. Done, Evelyn said. And I have one condition, Anna said, looking up. What is it? When you arrest him, Anna said, her voice flat. I want to be in the room. Evelyn Reed looked at the data starting to scroll on the screen. Flawless, damning, and beautiful. Ms. Scott, Evelyn said, I think we can arrange that. The next 48 hours were a blur. Anna was moved from the hotel to a secure SEC safe house. There, surrounded by forensic accountants and federal agents, she did what she did best. She gave them the data. She didn't just give them the Cayman account, she gave them the entire architecture of the Woods financial empire. She had built it, and she could dismantle it, piece by piece. She gave them the backdoor server passwords, the encrypted algorithms, and a complete, annotated map of Griffin's fraud. It was, as one agent called it, a confession written by the victim. Evelyn Reed's team worked around the clock. With Anna's data as a key, they unlocked everything. Meanwhile, the world was on fire. The New York Stock Exchange opened at 9:30 a.m. Woods Global, ticker BGH, did not dip. It fell off a cliff. The stock, which had closed at $250 a share, opened at $90. The crazy wife story hadn't worked. The financial world believed Quant Phoenix over the Woods PR machine. At 9:32 a.m., trading on BGH was automatically halted to prevent a total panic. At 10 Saturn a.m., the SEC, armed with Anna's primary evidence, served a warrant on Woods Global's headquarters. They raided the building, carting out servers and boxes of files. At 10:05 a.m., they served a warrant on the Woods townhouse, where Beatrice and Philippa had been hiding. The matriarch, in her silk dressing gown, was photographed on her doorstep, screaming at federal agents, a picture that would grace the cover of the New York Post. The Queen is dead. The Woods family assets were frozen, all of them. The credit cards were shut off. The private jets were grounded. The friends who had populated their gala tables suddenly did not return their calls. Philippa, according to the news, had a meltdown at a Bergdorf's when her card was declined. She was filmed trying to leave with a $10,000 handbag, screaming at the clerk, "Don't you know who I am? You're the sister of a fraud," the clerk replied, snatching the bag back. But the real drama was happening with Robert, Philippa's husband. Robert was a weak man, a hanger-on. He had enjoyed the Woods money, but he had no stomach for the Woods fight. He was implicated in the fraud. He had signed off on several of the fake, consulting invoices, and he knew it. As the empire crumbled, Robert did what weak men do. He panicked. He saw the ship sinking, and he didn't want to go down with it. At 3 p.m. on the second day, Robert walked into Evelyn Reed's office with his lawyer and offered to turn state's witness against his own family. "I'll give you everything," he stammered, his hands shaking. Griffin, Beatrice, they were in it together. They've been laundering money for decades, long before Anna. They used her to make the company look legitimate so they could steal more. "We know," Evelyn said, unimpressed. "Your testimony helps, mister. But we already have the data." "But you don't have this," Robert said, his eyes wide with terror. He was saving his trump card. "You have the financial fraud. I have the threat." Evelyn leaned forward. "What threat?" "They were going to get rid of her," Robert whispered. "Anna. They were going to solve the Anna problem once the company was stable. Griffin was just waiting for the stock to peak. They were going to make her disappear. A boating accident, an overdose. They talked about it. Beatrice said it was cleaning up a loose end." Robert's lawyer slid a small audio recorder across the table. "My client, fearing for his own safety, has been recording conversations for the last 6 months. Evelyn pressed play, the room filled with the sound of Griffin's slick, charming voice. "She's served her purpose. The phoenix has built the nest. Once we go private, she's just a liability, a simple overdose. Tragic. The brilliant, troubled mind, finally at peace. Mother agrees. It's the cleanest way." Evelyn Reed's blood went cold. This just went from a white-collar financial case to a blue-collar conspiracy to commit murder. At 6:04 p.m., Griffin Woods was in an emergency board meeting in his lawyer's high-rise office, frantically trying to stop the bleeding. He was attempting to liquidate his foreign assets, but Anna had already locked him out. "We will fight this," he was yelling. "We will file a countersuit." The doors to the conference room burst open. Evelyn Reed walked in, flanked by 2 armed federal agents. "Griffin Woods," she said, her voice ringing in the silent room. "You are under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder." Griffin's jaw dropped. "Murder? That's insane. You can't be serious." "Oh, we are," Evelyn said, and from behind the agents, Anna stepped into the room. She looked at her husband. He stared at her, his eyes blazing with a hatred so pure it was almost visible. He finally understood. She hadn't just out-traded him. She had outmaneuvered him, outthought him, and outplayed him at every turn. "You," he seethed as the agents pulled his hands behind his back. "You bitch!" The agents clicked the handcuffs shut. Anna just looked at him, her face calm. "The data," she said, "was messy." They arrested Beatrice an hour later at her spa. The matriarch, the Queen of New York, didn't scream this time. When she saw the agents and the specific charge on the warrant, she simply fainted. The trial was a media circus. It was dubbed the Fall of the House of Woods. It was the only thing on the news for 6 weeks. The public, who had first been titillated by the crazy wife story, was now firmly on Anna's side. She was Quant Phoenix, the secret genius who had been betrayed. She was a folk hero. The Woods legal team, a high-priced group of sharks, did their best. They tried to paint Robert as a liar, an opportunist saving his own skin. They tried to paint the audio recording as a fantasy, a dramatic exaggeration between a mother and son, not a real plot. But they had no defense against Anna. When Anna took the stand, the courtroom was so quiet you could hear the sketch artist's charcoal on the paper. She was not the little mouse from the gala. Dressed in a simple, sharp grey suit, she was the most powerful person in the room. The defense attorney tried to corner her. "Ms. Scott," he said, "let's be honest. This is all about revenge, isn't it? Your husband's family was cruel to you. They didn't accept you. And this," he gestured to the courtroom, "this is your grand, vindictive, and very public revenge." He smiled, thinking he had her. Anna looked not at the lawyer, but at the jury. "Revenge," she said, her voice clear and precise, "is an emotional act. It's an irrational desire to inflict pain. I am not an emotional person. I am a quantitative analyst. I deal in data." She turned her gaze to the lawyer. "The data showed that my husband was a fraud. The data showed he was actively undermining the very company I had saved. The data showed he was stealing from his shareholders. The data showed he and his mother were conspiring to have me killed." She leaned forward slightly. "My actions were not emotional," she said. "They were the only logical conclusion. My husband was not just a bad man. He was a bad variable. He was a catastrophic liability. I didn't seek revenge. I solved the problem. The Woods empire was a house of cards. I simply stopped holding it up." The courtroom was silent. The lawyer had no more questions. The verdict came back in under 2 hours. Griffin Woods was found guilty on all counts. The financial fraud alone would have been 10 years. The conspiracy to commit murder charge added another 10. He was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison with no possibility of parole. He was led from the courtroom in a daze, the visionary who would not see the outside of a cell until he was an old man. Beatrice Woods was also found guilty. Her recording was undeniable. "It was just talk," she had insisted. The jury disagreed. She was sentenced to 7 years. Her reign was over. Robert, for his cooperation, received 2 years probation and was entered into witness protection. He vanished, a ghost in a new, mediocre life, which, for a man who loved luxury, was its own kind of prison. And Philippa? She was left with nothing. She was not charged with a crime, but she was bankrupt. The townhouses, the Hamptons estate, the jewels, all seized by the government and the creditors. She was last seen moving into a small, rented apartment in New Jersey, trying to sell her used designer bags on the internet. She was, in the end, the new charity case. 6 months passed. The winter snows melted, taking with them the last, soiled vestiges of the Woods name. The name itself had become a curse, a business school case study in catastrophic, hubristic failure. The New York Post covers of Beatrice's spa arrest had long since been recycled. Now, Forbes and the Wall Street Journal were publishing deep-dive analyses of the collapse, universally praising the SEC's star witness, the market savant who had been hidden in plain sight. Woods Global Holdings ceased to exist. Its assets, the building, the art, the trading desks, were auctioned off by federal marshals to pay a fraction of the fines and the mountain of debt the company owed. The Fifth Avenue penthouse, stripped of its furniture, was sold at a loss. The Hamptons estate was seized. The dynasty had evaporated. On the 48th floor of a new glass and steel tower in the financial district, miles physically and spiritually from the old money enclaves of the Upper East Side, the view was spectacular. The office was not a maze of dark mahogany and hushed, fearful secretaries. It was an open, airy space, flooded with sunlight. The only sound was the energetic, focused hum of keyboards and quiet, intense collaboration. On the glass door, the name etched in simple, strong lettering read, Phoenix Analytics. Anna Scott stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the city. This was her domain, built not with a stolen name, but with a reclaimed one. Her company was already the most talked-about quantitative firm on the street. But it wasn't just a hedge fund. Its mission was twofold: ethical, transparent, data-driven market strategy, and a foundation dedicated to financial literacy for women. They were, in fact, the primary sponsors of a new gala at the Met that evening, one that would fund scholarships for women in STEM and finance. The Wall Street Journal reporter from that fateful night, the one who had sprinted out of the Temple of Dender, was sitting in Anna's office, her notepad open. She was here for a 1 year later feature. It's a long way from the Temple of Dender, the reporter said, her voice filled with genuine respect. She remembered the little mouse in the navy dress, standing alone, absorbing the mockery. The woman in front of her today was a different being, dressed in a sharp, emerald-green pantsuit, the color of new growth, of power, of money. "I have to ask, Anna," the reporter continued. "The board of the old BGH, they were desperate. They offered you the moon to stay on, to try and save the company. A massive settlement, the CEO chair, anything. You walked away from all of it. You could have taken the money and disappeared. Why this? Why start over from scratch?" Anna was silent for a moment, her gaze fixed on the distant, tiny form of the Met. "The Woods," she said, her voice even. "They thought my name, Woods, was my prison. And Griffin, he thought his name was my prize. They saw the world in terms of transactions, of what you could buy or who you could own. They never understood actual value." She turned from the window to face the reporter. "My work was my value. For 2 years I let someone else put his name on my work." "Why did you?" the reporter asked, leaning in. "You were Quant Phoenix. You were already a legend. You didn't need him." "Didn't I?" Anna countered with a small, sad smile. "I was afraid. I was a woman from Brooklyn with no connections, no pedigree. I was afraid of not being taken seriously. I thought I needed their shield. I thought I needed Griffin to be my voice, to translate my ideas into a language that men like him would listen to." She looked around her bustling office, at the brilliant, diverse team of quants and ethicists she had personally recruited. "I learned that a shield can become a cage, and a voice can become a muzzle. I will never make that mistake again." "So this is revenge?" "No," Anna said firmly. "Revenge is an emotional, irrational act. This is a logical conclusion. They're irrelevant. They called me the Brooklyn waitress as an insult. They thought it made me small. They forgot what that job entails. That waitress didn't just serve coffee. She managed 30 tables at a time, ran complex logistics in her head, and read people with perfect accuracy. That waitress built a trading algorithm that terrified Wall Street. That waitress saw the truth when all the men with billion-dollar pedigrees were blind." She walked to her desk, the center of the open-plan room. "This," she said, gesturing to the entire office, "isn't about proving them wrong. This is about building something that can't be taken. It's about creating a place where a woman's work is her own, where her name is her own, and where she never has to trade her genius for a seat at the table. We're building our own table." The reporter looked at Anna, truly seeing her for the first time. She was not a ghost. She was not a victim. She was not a guest in someone else's world. She was the most solid, powerful thing in the room. "The Woods are gone," Anna said, her voice softening, but with a steel edge. "They're a case study. They're a bad memory." She smiled, a genuine, bright smile that lit up her face. "But the waitress? She's just getting started. My name is Anna Scott, and the only thing I'm building from now on is my own." The mouse became a lion, the charity case became the CEO, and the family that had it all lost it all, because they forgot the one simple rule of the real world: brains will always, always beat a name. Anna didn't just get her revenge, she got her justice, and she built her own empire from the ashes of theirs. What a story. What a takedown. If you loved watching Anna get her moment on that stage, do me a favor and hit that like button. It's a huge help. And I want to know what you think. What was the exact moment you knew Griffin was finished? Was it the speech, or was it the Cayman Islands? Let me know your favorite part in the comments below. And if you want more stories of epic takedowns and justice served, please subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for listening.